What's up, guys? It's Ali from Roman Motor Company. Welcome to another episode of the podcast for the cars that we sell, for the business that we run here. And as usual, I try to get somebody that is somebody that knows the cars that we have that are selling, or somebody that's an enthusiast that's worked on those cars and so on. So for this for this podcast, we have our 2JZ M3. I think it's getting a lot of attention on Bring a Trailer. Lots and lots of people are asking a lot of questions, lots of good feedback and good comments. And I was kind of figuring out to get somebody that's maybe like a Supra guy or like a 2JZ guy. And I thought about it. I was like, hey, you know what? We're just going to try to get somebody that's very, very important to this car, somebody that's actually built this car. So his name is Al. He's actually here. He's made the time to be on this podcast. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock their time when we just finished with work. And he made the time to actually be on here on the podcast for us. So Al, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Welcome to the Roman Motor Company podcast. We're going to talk about the masterpiece that you built that's right behind us. So welcome. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's kind of walk you through it. Obviously, how we do these podcasts. I know you've done a lot of videos. You're ahead of the game when it comes to videos, but I kind of wanted to give you a brief summary of what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about yourself, your background, how you came up with the idea of this M3, and then, kind of get into the details. So first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? What made you do this crazy build that you did? What work did you put into it? So let's talk.
All right. Well, I mean, basically, like you said, my name's Al, but my full name is Al Hugh Gale. And, cars, as you can see, cars is just a major hobby for me. Cars has always been a passion for me. As far as what I do, I know it seems like I build cars. I do build cars. I build my own personal cars. Unfortunately, what I actually do is I'm a real estate investor, and I'm also a financial consultant. My full-time business is financial consultant. You can actually look me up on rocketcredit.live. I just help people, get their credit together, get their finances together, and, get them into homes, cars, or whatever, they're trying to purchase or get into, pretty much.
I'll definitely send you some customers, because we definitely have a lot of customers that, apply for certain cars, and they just need that little bit of a credit bump. So I'll definitely be sending you some clientele for sure.
Oh, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. I've gotten people into a lot of cars that they wanted in the past. So it's easy for me to get you into the car that you want. When you want to get into the house that you want, then I work with you for about 6 months to a year to get you into the house that you want. But been very successful. I've been doing this business for 15 years. And, it's been
amazing, man. I love it. If it's anything close to what you did with this M3, the type of work you did with the car, if your real estate business and investing is like that, I love it. I'm a client already.
Hey, listen, I'm a man of my word, and I do good work. As you can see, that car is a testament of, the quality that I put out.
This car is nuts. So tell me about the car. What made you, of all the things, what made you do the 2JZ swap? What made you, first of all, what made you take the motor out and put a 2JZ instead of a S54, or was the motor blown? What happened? Let's talk about it.
You know what? That's a really good question. And for me, it's all about uniqueness and just different. A lot of guys don't know, but I'm actually the first person in the world to actually have put a LS into an E46, BMW E46 M3. I did that.
Talk about that too.
That was before everyone was that was before you had any engine mounts out, for the whole, to put LS or any sort of motor swaps in the E46 M3. I'm an extreme tuner when it comes to specifically E46 M3s. And as you can see, there's one right next to me still.
I love it. That's the OEM plus one you're building, right?
This is the OEM plus one. For those that don't know what's going on with this, so far I did a complete respray. You can see the body's mint. Yep. I got the Ford 8.8 rear end on the back of this thing. It's suspension, completely reinforced the subframe. The same PureTech bar that you have in the trunk of
And the
that car.
E46 that I have, yep.
That's also in here as well. So, I'm doing a lot of things to this. I got some plans, some big plans in the future, but so far that's where I'm at with this.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about 2J. Why 2JZ swap?
So why the 2JZ swap was basically, like I said, back since '05, I put an LS in the E46 M3. This is now my 18th M3. That 2JZ M3 was I think that was my 14th or 13th E46 M3. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I don't see too much people doing. And I already had another LS M3 that I had, here already. So, a friend of mine said, 2JZ would be crazy. And I said to myself, yeah, 2JZ would be different. And the thing about it, that's a competition package M3. So yep. I said, I've never seen a competition E46 M3 with a 2JZ. So I said, that's it. That was the whole thought process. It's different, it's unique. It just hasn't been done before.
I love it. So when you did the 2JZ, so I guess let's tell the viewers a little bit about how I found you too, because that's a whole nother story. So I purchased this vehicle through a wholesale. It's called Wholesale Car Club. Majority of the car guys at this point know it's a very big group, amazing group. Another car collector that had a really good collection posted it for sale. I just jumped on it. I purchased the car. Now, when I purchased it, I had no idea what was done to the car, how good or bad of a job it was. My main thing was it's a 2JZ swap, run and drive, looks beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and buy it and then basically tidy up whatever needs to be tidied up, because I have bought cars that have had swaps. I have bought cars that, have been boosted and all kinds of mods. So I honestly was not expecting this car to be as good as it was. I was like, you know what? As long as the motor's there, I'll figure out the rest, perfect it in the next year or two that I have it. Then I get the car and I'm like, holy crap, like everything is done properly on this car. So let's talk about the process that you did. I guess while we're in this topic, when I bought it, I posted some Instagram reels of the car on our page and my Facebook and all that. And that's when somebody said, this is Al's car. So now I'm like, who the heck is Al? How am I going to find Al? So I actually started Googling and putting 2JZ swap M3, 2JZ swap M3 on YouTube. And I found it. I was like, that's a black M3 with a 2JZ. So I started kind of looking into it, and it was the car. And that's when I messaged yourself, and you were extremely helpful even months ago. This is almost a year ago when I messaged you. And then that's when I saw your videos, and you've documented everything. So let's walk us through, how did you build this car?
Well, so it took me about a year to build that car. And I was in no rush. I wanted to build it because I wanted to just have two of the baddest E46 M3s in the world. I had the LS M3, which is no longer with me. I actually sold that probably about 5 months ago. But the 2JZ M3, the thing about that car, I just wanted to give quality. I wanted to take my time with it. When I purchased the motor, I went down to Florida to JDM Orlando, purchased the motor from them, and drove all the way back up here to Atlanta. And I took my time breaking down that motor. I read everything, did all the research. Believe it or not, I never actually popped the 2JZ open before that build. But the thing about me, I'm very precarious and peculiar on how I do things. I really take my time to perfect things. I saw that. So I just really took my time, and I went through that entire motor, broke everything down. The only thing I never took out of that motor was the pistons, because everyone said, listen, these pistons can go up to 800 horsepower plus. So I said, all right, fine. I'll leave the pistons, but everything, oil pan, changed, broke down, cleaned, new pumps, new screws, new bolts. Even if it has a rusty bolt, I changed the bolts.
I love it. Yeah, there's nothing used on that thing. From any angle we can see, everything's replaced.
Yeah, nothing. I spared no expenses, when I was actually building it, because I was building it, just like I said, to have two of the baddest E46 M3s. So, took them ahead to a machine shop, had them go through the entire thing, had them refresh it, I actually had new valves, new OEM valves put in, retainers. Yeah, I mean, the entire motor took, as you can see, I saw the pictures, you posted the pictures. I went through and saw the pictures.
That's the ones you sent me.
Yeah, the
those are
ones
the
that I
pictures you
sent
sent
you.
me. Yeah.
I look back, I was like, damn, that's a good looking motor.
Yeah. No, because and I am gonna go through all your videos too and take more screenshots and pictures of the videos like you told me to do. You send me a ton of pictures, you send me a ton of receipts, and then just I've looked through your videos at least like 15, 20 times. And then the day I found you, I was literally up till like 4 a.m. watching every single video, like paying attention to what you've done and all that. And then obviously the next day I talked to you and you told me all the info. So the heads, you refresh them, the valves, the retainers, nuts and bolts, all the chain, everything is redone on this motor, right?
Every single thing on that motor was, refreshed. The block, completely, painted over, with heat paint. I mean, I specifically wanted steel braided lines for all the coolants and stuff because, sometimes you see guys they'll do a build and they'll just kind of do their build quick. You got cut hoses or you got the little regular clamps and things of that nature. I didn't want any of that. I wanted all the neat stuff, all the radiant stuff. I think
everything is all stainless. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I spent probably the two swivels that's on the head for the breathers. I think I probably spent about like $70 for just those two little fittings alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just so it would be a nice, clean build and something that I know that anybody would enjoy for a long time. And really and truly, it's been about 2 years since I let that car go. And
it still looks like you just did it.
Exactly. I'm not really surprised. I'm just actually really happy that it's still going exactly how I left it.
And I'll talk to you about this when I talk to you about how it feels driving it. It definitely is not exactly like you said, like where people build cars and they put stuff together and you can see like there's a hose loose and there's a hose clamp and this and that. On this one, every hose, every line, everything is just end fittings and just all stainless steel braided lines. And that shows the level of quality of work that you've put into it. And I really, really appreciate that. Now let's talk about. So I saw you, obviously the motor was completely done up, completely done. What about the fabrication part? Did you do the fabrication? I saw a video where you sent it out to a shop. They did the exhaust and stuff. What was the story on that?
So as far as fabrication go, one thing I do not weld. I don't pretend to weld. I've tried it, but it's just not my thing. So, yeah. A good friend of mine, Jamie in Upfab in Florida, he actually moved to Fort Myers now, moved his shop there. He did all the fabrication in my LSM3. So there's only two fabricators that I trust in America. And that's Jamie in Florida or it's Goku in New York. So I said to myself, do I want to go to Florida or do I want to go to, New York? So I chose to go to Florida because obviously it's closer to Atlanta. So I took it down there to him and he did a phenomenal job with all the stainless steel custom, downpipe, the exhaust. I mean, the car is not even loud. Like when the car sits in idle, you don't even know that there's no swap. It's not obnoxious. It just sounds smooth. You know what I mean? It's not until you get on it. And that's basically because the way that, he welds and bends his pipes, like he just knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to fabrication. So I left that part up to him. I mean, I did, the manifold was a manifold that I purchased. So the manifold was simple. He didn't have to build that. But from the downpipe all the way through and intercooler piping, Jamie did all that fabrication for me.
I love it. I wish we could get Jamie on the podcast too. He could talk about it too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can.
So what about tuning part of it?
Huh?
The tuning part of it. You said it's got a black series ECU. What's the story on tuning? Because my question with that is
the tuning part is done by basically one of the only tuners that I trust with any of my builds. So it's SpecTune. Freddie from SpecTune. Please, guys, go check Freddie out. He is amazing at what he does. He tuned obviously he's the one that tuned my LS M3 when I had that. And I said, you know what, wherever he's at, I'm going to find him. So he actually does his business in Florida. he is now actually affiliated with Real Street, which is really dope. You know, I'm happy for him with that. So he does a lot of his tuning at Real Street in Florida, and he did all the tuning on the 2JZ M3. It's tuned on an ECU Master Black Series, which is, you know, it's one of the top ECUs. Once again, no expense spared. The wire harness was another big deal for me with this build. Now, I know a lot of people watching this podcast, and even yourself, have probably had wire harnesses that you had your little looms here, or you had little splices there to make it work.
I love it. It's all clean.
Oh man, well, you know what? When you do it piece, it gets a little crazy. But when I had oh man, I was a wiring specialist. I had wiring specialists build me a pro harness for that car. Everything is plug and play, simple, clean. No, there's no shorts. You know, there's no issues, because you know when you get crappy wire harnesses and you start having breakup or bad tunes, you're like, you think everything's a problem. Meanwhile, it's just a bad wire.
Yeah.
But that's not the case with that car at all. You know, the wire harness is a Pro Series wire harness. And I actually wanted to touch a topic that I saw someone on Bring a Trailer bring up. They said, oh, the AC is not 1, 2, 3, just plug in or whatever. And when I read that comment, I wanted to respond, but then I said, you know, we're going to do this podcast and I'll actually, you know, set it out straight here.
That's actually one of my questions at the end. I was going to ask you how hard or easy is it to get the AC? So I love the fact that you're already addressing that.
Oh yeah, no, the AC is simple to do, and it's something I was going to do if I had kept the car. Basically, the wire harness is already ran to actually plug right into the AC. Now, all you got to do is really get the lines built. Get the lines built. You could get an aftermarket condenser. You could run right in the front, behind. You can run it behind or above, because there's a space to actually run it above or behind the intercooler. And you basically run the lines from the left side to the right side. It's really the lines, the compressor lines that you got to get built. And you will have the AC rolling in that car. You know, all the buttons and everything inside are OEM. They do work. You know, it's really not that difficult if someone knows what they're doing to get AC back in that car. You know, just for the record, I thought that was a little crazy.
So you brought up a good topic of the buttons or OEM, right? So the AC, that was going to be my next question, is if the OEM HVAC control is going to work. So I love the fact that, you know, I could potentially, you know, get that done too, but obviously we got about 5-6 days left in the auction. I don't think that's happening. But the one thing I noticed, and I was going to ask you, what makes it this clean and this good of a job, is the cluster works properly, the RPM gauge works properly, the coolant gauge works properly, the fuel, all of that, like I'm assuming obviously the body module, everything's BMW. Is that the harness and the ECU that's making it work that good? Or did you do any custom work to make sure that all of these add up and line up the same way? So it's not like I'm driving on the freeway and the odometer doesn't work or the cluster doesn't work. What makes it work that good, like an OEM car, as if does not have a swap?
So what makes it work that good, and you know, that was actually a big part of when I was building that car. I wanted things to be pretty much like OEM. It's the wire harness and it's the ECU combination. So when I was ordering that wire harness, and when I actually, you know, I built it all out. You know, I spoke to wiring specialists. They do offer, you could just get something right off the shelf, but I actually spoke with them, told them exactly what I'm trying to do, what I want to accomplish, and what I'm going to need. So AC was priority. One of the other priorities was drive-by wire versus drive-by cable. So that car is actually running a Toyota, I think it's a BRZ. It's running a Toyota throttle body, because I wanted to have drive-by wire versus, you know, drive-by cable. And the ECU and the harness just ties the entire car, all the BMW stuff, and it ties all the motor stuff into one. So like you said,
I love it.
The tachometer works, the temperature gauge works. See, there's no
And it works
extra,
exactly flawlessly. It's not like flickering. It's not doing any of that. Yeah.
none of that. There's no extra gauges. I'm not really big on gauges all over the place, gauge pods and all this other stuff. Yeah, you got some nice ones, but I'm just not big on it. I don't think it's necessary if the car already has it. You know what I mean? So, the fuel gauge, like I said, the AC will work once you plug, you plumb all your AC stuff. The AC buttons are going to work. OEM, everything works. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of that car. It's nothing. A lot of times you get a car that someone built, and then it's like you got to find the builder because things are just haywire. That's not the case.
Because you have no idea what's going on with it. Yeah. And this one, it's like an OEM car.
Anybody
So-
can get into it.
What's up?
I said anybody could get into that car and they'll know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Nothing special is going on.
Definitely. So one of the videos that I saw that you took the car to the tuner, what was the name of the tuner again?
Spectune. His name is Freddie. His company is Spectune.
Nice. So you took it to Spectune, you put on the dyno, there's a video, and in the video, obviously you said you were sad and something went wrong, but then I realized that you just didn't make as much power as you wanted to. You ran out of spring at the wastegate. So how much power did it make? What numbers was it putting out at the time? And what can you tell me on the power wise?
So we had two snafus. The first issue was when I took it down there. We was on the dyno. We noticed, fuel was kind of like cutting. Come to realize that we had a whole fuel leak. There was a fuel leak underneath by the pressure regulator, which is also radium. The entire fuel system has 10 AN fittings. The entire fuel system is radium. And I actually built the fuel system to handle anywhere from 8 to 1,000 horsepower. So like I said, the first issue on the dyno was the fuel leak. It was a simple fix. Just basically have to, tighten up the fittings. You're going to always run into those kind of bumps and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
Second issue was we ran out of spring. I believe it was about, I want to say probably a 12-pound spring, or 12 or 8 pound. It's been a while, but basically we ran out of wastegate spring, and we kind of left off at about 500. I think it was about 530 or 540 horsepower. But Freddie assured me there was well over 600 into the car, that we could have got out the car. It was just a matter of, changing out to a heavier spring and, getting back down there. But like I said, I'm in Atlanta. He's all the way down in Florida. So it's not always easy to just jump in the car, jump in the trailer and just, hold down there.
So safely, it makes about 560, 540 horsepower. If we were to push it, you have it built basically to make up to 1,000 when it comes to fuel and everything. Obviously, you've done the motor work and everything where it's going to easily handle all that. What do you think it makes right now? Because I think you did say that you put a bigger or stronger, heavier spring in there, or not yet?
Spring, right now it's supposed to be making around 570. You could actually push that car to 600 safely. 600, you can push.
Is that on E85 or 91 or 93?
E85. On E85.
Which is what it's on right now. And this is on flex fuel, right? Just to confirm?
Yes.
So I can put 91 or 85. Car will adjust itself as needed.
Yep.
Love it.
It is on flex fuel. Somebody want to add more. If somebody want to turn up the boost, it's as simple as actually getting back on the dyno, throwing some fresh E85 in, and having your tuner. Freddie can also remote tune the car.
Remote tune, yep. So we have it scheduled. So my tuner is actually similar to you, like you mentioned with Freddie. I have one tuner that I always send my cars to. Most of you guys that are like in the Toyotas, Hondas, BMWs, you know him. You might know him too. Darden Tune. Do you know of that guy?
I've heard him before. I heard the name.
Yeah. So he does all of my tuning. My luck, which was for the MR2 and the M3 videos and auction, he's actually in Europe right now. So he is going to do a remote tune. He's actually already tuned the MR2, the NSX tune. So we're trying to see if somehow before the auction ends, I'm going to go into his dyno shop. open up the shop, load up the car, and he's going to remote tune it. We'll see if that's going to work and figure it out. But that's a hope that I have, that before the auction, I want to at least put on the dyno. So at least, for those of you watching, it makes 550 to 580 safely, and that's what it drives right now. So now, since we're talking about this, before I tell you my driving experience with this car, what are the supporting mods on this car? So what's the clutch? You mentioned the fuel. Fuel is already done with radium fittings and stuff. And so what kind of clutch is in it? What kind of diff is in this car? And the diff reinforcement, I think that was one of the questions. You kind of addressed it already. So what's the story on the supporting mods?
As far as supporter mods, oh man, I wish I remembered every single thing that I did to that car, but it has been a while. I don't want to just throw out which kind of clutch is in there. I mean, believe me that when I say there's nothing cheap in there, because
Yeah, well, I have it. I have the receipts, but I figured if you remembered, you would have mentioned it. But we'll mention it on the listing. I have the receipt. You sent it to me. I don't remember which one it was, but we'll put it on there.
okay, all right, perfect. Because I don't remember.
Reinforcement on the diff. You've already done that, right?
Yeah, so the reinforcement was actually done. I did check it again to make sure that it was actually done, because the story with this car is I actually purchased this car from a friend of mine who had it. He did the reinforcement, he had it, and he said, listen, I already did the subframe, I manual swapped it, and all this other stuff. And I was just like, okay, I mean, whatever. So I actually went over the entire car, and sure enough, the subframe was already reinforced, and I threw the PureTech extra reinforcement in there as well. There's no issues there at all. You don't have to worry about no vanos. So, because
Vanos, rod bearings, none of that. You don't got to worry about any of that stuff.
No rod bearing issues. So for all you E46 M3 guys asking if the big three was done, yes, the big three is done. You ain't got to worry about two.
It's more than done.
Exactly. So, I purchased the car from him and just went over everything, and everything's solid.
So I've owned, just the same way as you, I've owned a lot of cars. I've owned a lot of modified cars. I've built them. I've bought cars that have been modified. And when it comes to heavily modified stuff, I'm not a big fan of it. That's just how I am. I like my stuff stock, unless, it's done up very well. If it's like a resto mod, which I think this kind of qualifies as one. So the reason why I don't like them is I think my S2000 is going to be a perfect example of that, is because that particular car, it makes about 650, 620 horsepower. It's a time attack car. I've done, when we bought it, it was a time attack car. I painted it. We did upholstery work. We made it really pretty. But I absolutely hate driving that thing on the street. It's obviously a track car.
Yeah.
But when you drive it, like you said, there's gauges, there's this, there's that. I have the aim gauge, so it gives me all the information there. But I always have to worry about like the oil getting too hot, the radiator the coolant getting too hot, and letting the engine cool down, and this and that, and the suspension's too stiff, and it's just too modified. Even though that car is done up very well, it's too fast and too modified for its own good. Now, coming to the 2JZ, I've owned this car for roughly almost a year now, probably close to a year. And when I first bought the car, my thing with the 2JZ was I drove it probably like 5-6 times, took it home. I don't live too far. Took it to downtown, drove it around, and I loved it, And at the time, I also hadn't met you yet, so I honestly wasn't 100% sure if I can push this car. How is the tune? How is this and that? So the little bit of mileage that I put on it, I enjoyed it. Sounded good, drove good, suspension felt good, everything. And I was like, you know what? This is great. I love it. I'm gonna keep it in my showroom, enjoy it as time goes by. So then fast forward 5-6 months later, as we're getting it ready for Bring a Trailer, I started putting some more miles, and I started kind of pushing the car, doing these videos. So these driving videos, the most recent video that I posted that Andrew shot for us, because we really need to make sure, you can hear the car, you can see me shifting and driving and all that. And that's when I was like, holy crap, this thing is a beast, because I cannot do that with my S2000. I've had a lot of other, Supras and NSXs and stuff. And at the end of the day, you worry about something breaking. Like something's overheating, the clutch is slipping, the suspension is too stiff. With this car, the other day, about a week ago, we took the car out and I drove it for a good hour and a half in about 110 degree weather. It was hot. Obviously, it doesn't have AC. You can see me kind of sweating inside the car. But I pushed this car quite a bit. Like, I'm not obviously abusing the car, we're not beating on the car, But I'm getting it to the rev limiter. We're shifting first, second, third, fourth, all these gears, braking, cornering. And that's when I was like, is this why people love the 2JZ so much? Because every single time it was the same consistent power. The coolant gauge is exactly at like 45, 50% mark. Everything is spot on. There's no like hiccups. There's no issues. It's not like the engine is running rough one time and then the other time it's making power. All that stuff was like spot on. So, and then again with the suspension too, like suspension feels really, really good. It's squatting obviously because I think one of the comments somebody asked, because you got 600 horsepower, 550 wheel horsepower, whatever. So it squats, but when you're driving in normal, it feels like a stock suspension. You hit some corners, it feels very stable and composed. And that's why I wanted to kind of talk about this and give you props for building the car the way you did, because it's not just a ton of horsepower and then nothing else. The brakes feel good, the suspension feels good, and overall as a car, it really truly does feel like a stock car. It feels like I can beat on it for 5 hours at a time and I feel comfortable that it's not going to break and it's not going to have any issues. So big props to you on the way the car actually feels.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing, that's a big thing. And like you were saying, that's how the way you feel in the S2000 is how I felt, driving around in my 2JZ not 2JZ M3, in my LS M3.
LS.
Yeah, and I was just like, the LS M3 was just balls to the walls, wild, it was crazy. But you just never know when
too wild is not fun.
The 2JZ is a nice mixture, and really and truly one of the best things that I love about the 2JZ is just the sound. Like you could listen to that engine and the blow-up valve all day long. Like it sounds so good.
The best part about that 2JZ, and it actually accidentally happened to me because I never like pushing the cars and beating on them. I like to enjoy them.
Yeah.
So we did a Garage Collective video. Did a reel. It's a big. You guys know who Garage Collective is. They're on Bring a Trailer too. We did a quick reel, and when I did it, it was like a 30-second reel. I think I accidentally just being excited and doing the video, I hit rev limiter in second gear. And holy crap, that sounds good. It just sounds like you're shooting a freaking AK-47. It doesn't shoot flames or anything, which I love because it's not super obnoxious. But the sound of that engine just sounds really, really good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
speaking of rev limiter, the car has a stock E46 M3 transmission and stock diff, all the ratios, everything is stock, correct?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, so, Ali, I wanted to know, since I let it go, it's been a long time since I've had the car. So what have you done, differently since you had the car? I mean, one thing that I did notice, because I thoroughly went through your Bring a Trailer videos. I mean, between the videos and the pictures, all 300 pictures.
A lot of pictures.
But one thing that I did notice, I was like, wow, hold on. I don't remember those seats looking so mint. So yeah. Clearly, I believe that was you. Was that you, and what else have you done?
Yes. So most of my Bring a Trailer listings, you guys have seen it. Most of our cars in general, and we've talked about this in the podcast too. So we do a lot of stuff in-house. We do, upholstery work. We do dry ice cleaning, paint correction and stuff. So I'm kind of an OCD person myself. And when I got the E46 M3 and, I spent a couple of weeks with it, I was like, holy crap, mechanically this thing is as solid as it can be. So the only thing lacking was some of the cosmetic stuff. So when we got the car, the seats were not bad by any means. So it was pretty good shape, for a 150, 160,000 mile car. But I'm big on upholstery because most people skip out on that, And to me, the best place or the place that you spend the most amount of time on a car is the interior, So I'm big on making sure the interior feels good, feels clean, and any kind of sagging on the headliner and stuff, we can take care of it. So the seats I redid. And we did actual leather, not vinyl seats or anything like that. It's the grain of leather is very similar to the grain that BMW uses. The color, everything is very similar. And we still kept the headrest, so we can still keep the M logo. So the seats are reupholstered. We did the headliner on it. The headliner actually did very recently. So I didn't even notice that the back of the headliner was kind of starting to sag, and I noticed that in the photos. So we just redid the headliner, and the fabric on the headliner is the same as the ones that you guys will see in the newer Porsches, the newer E92, F80 M3s. It's more of like a mesh type fabric. So we did that. And obviously, as you can see, we've done full paint correction, graphene coating, and dry ice blasting. So as good as of a job that Al had done and his fabricator, everything looked beautiful underneath. It's still, a 2003, 2004 car. So we went ahead, dry ice blasted it. So the shocks, the control arms, all the bits and pieces underneath the car look as good as it does, on the outside, on the paint and interior of the car too. So all that stuff has been done. We did obviously alignment, fluids, all that fun stuff. So yeah.
Okay, all right. So basically, you just refined everything, and
We try to make it, a little bit more up to date on today's, day and age where when you drive the car, it doesn't feel like a fairly old car, 20-year-old car at this point. So yeah, but my last question that I had, and we're gonna wrap this up, is everybody that has seen this car when it was with me in the last almost year, and also now I'm bringing a trailer, I've been getting a lot of questions about it. Is they're asking one if we built it, and I've always said, hey, that's not something we can do right now, and I don't think we ever can as good of a job as Al. The question that they keep asking is, can we get this car, can we get our car built this way? And can the builder build it for us? So my question to you, Al, is what are we talking as far as somebody potentially shipping their car to you? Is that something you have the capacity for? Because, and I'll throw this out there too, the quotes that we got for replicating a job like this was the closest one that was in the same range between a few different shops. One was in Florida, I think one was in New York, if I'm not mistaken. Was between $48,000 and $55,000 is what they were quoting. Mostly are like 48 to 50, and that does not include any kind of internal work. It does not include any upgraded turbos or even single turbo. From what I remember, it was basically the mounts, the harness, putting a super motor in it, obviously a GTE, but we're talking 50 grand average for a shop to do this work. Is that something you're willing to take for the people watching this podcast and people that are going to buy this car on Bring a Trailer eventually? Is that something you can replicate for customers? What's your take on that?
I mean, first of all, wow. I didn't even know that the prices have gone, so high, and that's where it's at. But I mean, by all means, for the right client, I really don't mind actually building another one of these cars for the right client. I won't just take on anybody's car. I won't just take on this job for just anybody, because as you can see, I'm actually a very busy person, and I don't rush anything. I'm not a shop that needs to rush things to make money. If I actually do this for somebody, I'm doing this to fulfill a passion that they have, and it's also just recreation for me as well. And I mean, financially, it works as well, for something that I know how to do. So yeah, I mean, if somebody seriously want to get something like this done, we could definitely sit down, we could talk, and we could make something happen. We could definitely make something happen.
I love it. I love that. I did say that's my last question, but I do have one other question too. So one of the videos, which was you said you sold the M3, and then another car popped up. So what's I guess let's address that too. What made you sell this M3? What, you put all this work, you put all this time, you wanted to have the baddest two M3s. You had the LS M3 and you had the Turbo M3 or the 2JZ M3. What made you want to sell this car?
Well,
and I can see the reason in the video, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, you see the reason. I'll let everybody else know the reason. The only reason I sold that car, which everybody was shocked, was because I took delivery of this, of this particular red 997 Turbo. So, if you're a Porsche fan, or if you're not a Porsche fan, just a little history on it. This is a 997.1.1 with the Metzger engine turbo. So this car is actually appreciated a lot since the time I bought it 2 years ago. So, not only is it, just an amazing car, it's an appreciating asset. Plus, you don't find these every day. This is a 6-speed manual, 991.
Oh my God, I was going to say, it's a manual or a PDK? Well, that's not a PDK, but yeah.
Yep, it's a manual. It's the last. This is a unicorn, and this is actually a 2009. So it's the last year of the Metzger engine. So this is a very special car.
It's a guards red.
Oh yes, it is guards red as well.
Love it. Yeah, I've been seeing your post about it. That thing is beautiful. So you've had that car for almost a year and a half at this point, then. Well, maybe 2 years.
Since I had it I had about 3 months before I sold the 2JZ M3, so I had it.
Got it.
Quite some time now.
I love it. I think that's one of those cars that definitely is reasonable to say, hey, I'm gonna sell this E46 2JZ M3 to upgrade. I actually had really good experience with that same exact car myself. That car actually sold on Bring a Trailer too. I had a 997.2 Turbo S, and that was one of those cars that it's essentially, honestly, the best way I can put it is basically same like this 2JZ M3. Everything is solid. You can beat on it like 5 hours nonstop. Nothing goes wrong, and it's the same consistency every single time. You beat on it from first gear to fifth gear to sixth gear, and it's the same power band, the same boost, the same everything, and it's just solid. And I think the main reason why that car is so good is it doesn't make too much power. It doesn't make 1,000 horsepower. Doesn't make even 800. What does it make to the wheels? What, probably like 550 on that car, I believe.
This one makes about 500 before the Turbo S, so it's just shy.
Yeah, and that's more than enough power for a small car like that, and that keeps it consistent, and that's what makes it more fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, hey, congrats on the turbo. I keep saying Turbo S, but congrats on the 997 Turbo. I love that thing. I've seen pictures of it. It's beautiful. And once again, thank you so much for building a freaking beast of a car that is so well put together. And thank you for taking the time to come out here or in your own garage, making the time to do the podcast, because this does take time. Now, I know you put time away from family to be able to do this. So I really appreciate it. I hope that the bidders on Bring a Trailer appreciate your work and time that you put in, and hopefully we can get you some business. I think there's some really serious people that have asked me to, one, purchase this car, and there's ones that have really nice M3s that they can't get rid of to buy this car. So I think those people, I'm gonna hopefully refer you some good clientele to send you their cars and get some fun stuff. And I actually want to send you an 80 series Land Cruiser to put a 2JZ for me, so maybe we can work on that too. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think that should be it. I'll let you get to some family time. We will stay in touch and see how this auction does on Bring a Trailer. If I have any questions, or if you do, let us know, and we'll be happy to help.
All right, no problem, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Have a good night. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.